Okay, I have another version of this quiz that I want to just walk you through. Some people struggle a little bit with this quiz, and I need you to realize that this is not anything that you should struggle with, that we can figure this out. So we learned that a function is a relation just is a set of inputs and outputs, but for a function, every input can only have one outcome. So in this case, I look at my inputs, and I might as well list them for the domain, because that's domain is our inputs. I have a negative 15, then I have a negative 12, I have a negative 10, I have a negative 5, and a positive 5. The fact that I did not repeat myself, this is a function. Every input only has one outcome. So if I would have seen negative 12 again, and right now negative 12 is has an input, or excuse me, negative 12 has an output of 7, and if later on we would see negative 12 having a different output, it wouldn't be a function, okay? So we have our domain, and our range are the outcomes. So I see an outcome of negative 4, a 7. We have 7 again. You could write it. You don't have to. And then we have just a 3. Okay, so for this particular function, we only have 3 different outcomes. Okay, so for this problem, instead of listing all the points, and notice how it's continuous, it would be impossible to list all these points because every fraction, every decimal is in between. What we need to realize is we can do the vertical line test. So if I could draw a vertical line and it's crossing more than one point at a time, it's not a function. And you can see it right here. When you have an input of 2, I have lots of different outcomes. Okay, so dots on top of dots. So this is not a function. Okay, now as far as our domain, here we were able to just list the inputs. Well, you have to look at this graph and realize my lowest input is 0. The highest is going to be an 8. So we go and we need to include all the points in between 0 and 8, and including 0 and 8 since they're closed circles. So closed circle at 0, so we want to include 0. So to do that, I use an inequality. My x's must be greater or equal to 0, but at the same time, they have to be less than or equal to 8. Okay, so we have to state that as an inequality. As far as your range is concerned, my lowest outcome, okay, I always start with the lowest, is a 1, and it goes all the way up to a 5. Okay, that's the highest point on this graph is an outcome of 5. So just like with the domain, I do an inequality. Okay, but this time my y values are going to be greater or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 5. Okay, so you had problems like that on the original quiz. So just make sure you understand, how to be able to set up and describe all the points in between. Okay, so this next one, I just want you to list these points in a table and then plot the points. Okay, so you get 2 different looks at this relation. So it says express the relation. So I'm going to first list all my x values. Okay, that's the domain. So notice I have negative 2 again. So I'll have negative 2. This will tell me that it's not a function. Since I'm listing negative 2 twice, it's not going to be a function. Okay, so with negative 2, we have an outcome of 1. When we have an input of 5, we have an outcome of 3. 1 is 0. And then here's why it's not a function. Negative 2 has an outcome of 6 as well. Okay, so there's the table form of these points, and I just have to plot them. Start at the origin, over 2, up 1, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1, 2, 3 is 5, 3, 1, 0, negative 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then finally 6, oh, excuse me, 6, and then down 2. Okay, and right here you can see it would fail the vertical line test. I can draw a vertical line and it's going to touch more than one point. It touches 2 points. Okay, so all we have to do is list my inputs, I don't need to write -2 again. You can, but I don't need to. And then my outputs, I have an output of 1, 3, 0, 6, and -2, okay? Now you could put these in order from least to greatest, but I'm not concerned as long as you have all the inputs and outputs, okay? So now this next section, it's just function notation. I have 3 different functions, and I give you inputs. I give you the x value, and you just have to go to the correct function and calculate. So for the g function, we're supposed to take -10 times the input. Well, I'm telling you, replace this x with a -3, and then we have -14. So again, if you need a calculator, I believe it's going to be a 16. I quickly did that in my head, but I'm going to double check on a calculator. We're multiplying -10 times -3 and then subtract 14. It's going to be a 16. Okay, and that's what I was looking for. For this one, I go to the f function, which is defined as -2 times my input, which in this case is a 5. And then I add 15. That's going to be a 5. But again, double check your calculations, okay? And then here, this is just taking my input and dividing it by 5. So that's a pretty simple rule, and you're going to get a -3. Okay, -15 divided by a 5 is 15. And then I have you go back to the f function, and this time replace it with a 6. Okay, so that's our universal notation that mathematicians came up with to help us understand how to evaluate functions. So I'm going to quickly do -2 plus 6. We're going to get a 3. Okay, so that part, super easy if you understand that notation. Okay, and now this part, this is different. Okay, we went over this. Again, if you did big ideas, you would have a chance to practice this. If we did the review for the quiz, you would have a chance to practice and understand I am not replacing the x with a 50, okay? I'm trying to figure out what input, what x needs to be so that we have an outcome of 50. I'm telling you the outcome this time. So I'm telling you 50 goes here. So it's 50 equals x minus 10. Well, to solve for x, it's only a one-step equation, which we did in chapter 1. You get a 60, okay? Again, nothing difficult about that problem, okay? And then this one, I'm telling you the output is 55. Here we have a two-step equation that we have to solve. Okay, so I have to subtract the 5. We get 50. And then last, I divide by -10. So my input would have to be a -5. Okay? And then here, I'm going to distribute right away. I'm going to take 5x minus 5, which then will give us a two-step equation to solve to find the input that gives us an outcome of 25. So again, this notation is I'm giving you the outcome. It won't take long to add a 5 and divide by 5. Okay, so we get a 6 as our answer. 30 divided by 5 is 6. Okay, last one. We want an outcome of 30. We're taking half of our input, and then we're subtracting 5. Okay, so to solve this, we add a 5, so now it's 35 equals a half of some number. And remember with this, we know we have to divide by half. You could also multiply by 2, but I'm going to show you this and remind you that if you have a fraction, put the fraction in parentheses and just write it as, in this case, 1 divided by 2. You can also divide by 0.5, but we're going to get a 70. Okay, so x is a 70. So if I would input a 70, take half of 70, it's 35 minus 5. I'm to my outcome. I get this outcome of 30. Okay, so then this last section, some people did struggle with graphing and graphing a line, especially in slope-intercept form. So on this quiz, all your graphs or all your functions were in the form y equals mx plus b. Okay, so you learned this in the past. Start with the y-intercept. A couple of you use the x-intercept. So This right here, this B, is the y-intercept. So I go along the y-axis, and I put a dot at -1, okay? Now my slope right here, the number in front is your slope, and in this case it's going downhill. So you go down 1 over 2. Now you can go up 1, which is a positive movement, and to the left 2. But regardless how you do it, it's going downhill. And if you think of money, you're in debt $1, and then you're spending $1 every 2 days. It's going to continue to go into debt. Where this one, I start out with $3. So my starting point is a 3, but then we are saving, okay, so it's going to go uphill at a rate of up 1, right 3. So start with a starting point. I have $3 now, and I'm going to save $1 every 1, 2, 3 days, okay? And then you just connect your dots. Should be real easy, okay? For this one, I have a starting point of -3. Now we're spending $4 every 3 days. Now I don't give you quite enough room, but you can go off. So down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 3. Okay? So if you don't have enough room to actually do the slope, going down and then to the right, I could go up 4. So up 1, 2, 3, 4, but then to the left 1, 2, 3. Okay? Same line. Same steepness, and that's how I can graph number 14, okay? And the last one, I see a starting point of 5, and I can go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, and if you want to continue, like, you can draw a line here, but if you want to go down 2 over 1, graph a couple dots with that same slope, it makes it easier to draw a nice straight line. But as soon as you see your starting point and you have your slope, you should see and understand what the graph looks like. Okay, so those 15 questions took us 12 minutes to complete. So just learn from this before you take our exam. So we will have an exam in chapter 3 where we're also going to be doing standard form of linear functions. So this right now is slope-intercept form. We also will handle standard form and just as easy to graph. Okay, thanks for watching. Hopefully that makes sense and hopefully you learned something. Okay, take care. Thanks for watching.